Guys, I'm going to read you Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library, chapters 7 and 8. So, chapter 7. Heading back to school on Tuesday, Kyle knew that he had to put on a brave face. He smiled as he walked with his class toward the auditorium for a special early morning assembly, the one where Mr. Luigi L. Lemoncello himself would announce the winners of the library lock-in essay contest. "I hope you picked yours," Kyle whispered to Akimi. "Thanks, I do too. But the lock-in won't be as much fun without you." "Well, when it's over and the library is officially open, you can take me on a tour." "That's exactly what I'm going to do, if I win. If you don't, I'm sending a flaming squirrel after Mrs. Cameron." For this assembly, the seventh graders, most of whom were 12 years old, were told to sit in the front rows close to the stage. That made Kyle feel a little better. At least he'd get a chance to see Mr. Lemoncello up close and personal. But his hero wasn't even on stage, just the principal, the school librarian, Mrs. Younghans, and a red-headed woman in high-heeled shoes who Kyle didn't recognize. She sat up straight, like someone had slipped a yardstick down the back of her bright red business suit, and her glasses were bright red, too. "That's Dr. Yanina Sinchenko," gushed Miguel Fernandez, who was sitting on Kyle's right. "Who's she?" said Akimi, seated to Kyle's left. "Just the most famous librarian in the whole wide world." "All right, boys and girls," said the principal at the podium. "Settle down. Quiet, please. It's my great honor to introduce the head librarian for the new Alexandriaville Public Library, Dr. Yanina Zinchenko." Everybody clapped. The tall lady in the red outfit strode to the microphone. "Good morning." Her voice was breathy with just a hint of a Russian accent. "12 years ago, this town lost its one and only public library when it was torn down to make room for an elevated parking garage. Back then, many said the internet had rendered the old-fashioned library obsolete. That a new parking garage would attract shoppers to boutiques and dress shops near the old bank building. But the library's demolition also meant that those of you who are now 12 years old have lived your entire lives without a public library. She looked down at the front rows. This is why, to kick off our summer reading program, 12 12-year-olds will be selected to be the very first to explore the wonders awaiting inside Mr. Lemoncello's extraordinary new library. You will, of course, need your parents' permission. We have slips for you to take home. You will also need a sleeping bag, a toothbrush, and, if you please, a change of clothes. She smiled mysteriously. You might consider packing 2 pairs of underwear. "Okay," thought Kyle. "That's bizarre. Did the librarian really think seventh graders weren't toilet trained?" "There will be movies, fun, food, games, and prizes. Also, each of our 12 winners will receive a $500 gift card toward the purchase of Lemoncello games and gizmos." "Oh man, $500 worth of free games and gear?" Kyle sank a little lower into his seat. The next time someone gave him an extra credit essay assignment, he would turn it in early. "And now, here to announce our winners, the man behind the new library, the master gamester himself, Mr. Luigi Lemoncello." Dr. Zinchenko gestured to her left. The whole auditorium swung their heads. People were clapping and whistling and cheering. But nobody came on stage. And then the applause petered out, which means it kind of faded. And then, on the opposite side of the stage, Kyle heard a very peculiar sound. It was a cross between a burp and the squeak from a squeaky toy that you would give to your dog. Take a second to think, what do you think is happening? What do you guys think is happening right now? Maybe it's Mr. Lemoncello. Maybe it's Marv playing with a dog toy. When he burped. Chapter 8. Over on the side of the stage, a shoe that looked like a peeled open banana appeared from behind the curtain. When it landed, the shoe burp squeaked. A second banana shoe burp squeaked onto the floor. Kyle looked up, and there he was, Mr. Lemoncello. He had loose and floppy limbs, and he was dressed in a three-piece black suit with a bright red tie. His black, broad-brimmed hat was cocked at a crooked angle atop his curly white hair. Kyle was so close that he could see a sly twinkle sparkling in Mr. Lemoncello's cool black eyes. Treading very carefully, Mr. Lemoncello walked toward the podium. The burp squeaks in his shoes seemed to change pitch depending on how hard he landed on his heels. He added a couple of little jig steps, and a quick hop and a stutter step skip, and yes, his shoes were squeaking out a song. Pop goes the weasel! On the pop, Mr. Lemoncello popped behind the podium. You guys know that song? Pop goes the weasel. The crowd went wild. Mr. Lemoncello politely bowed and said very softly, thank you, grazie, grazie. He bent forward so his mouth was maybe an inch away from the microphone. Buongiorno, boys and girls. He spoke very timidly, very slowly. This is how my mama and my papa teach me to speak the English. He wiggled his ears and straightened his back. But then, he said in a crisp, clear voice, I went to Alexandria Public Library, where a wonderful librarian named Mrs. Gail Tobin helped me to learn how to speak like this. If two witches were watching two watches, which witch would watch which watch? I can also speak while upside down and underwater, but not today, because I just had this suit dry cleaned and I do not want to get it wet. Mr. Lemoncello bopped and bounced across the stage like a happy grasshopper. Now then, children, if I may call you that, which I must because I have not yet memorized all of your names, even though I am the most amazingly incredible thing you'll find inside your wondrous new even though I am working on it, what do you think is the most amazingly incredible thing you'll find inside your wondrous new library, besides, of course, all of the knowledge you need to do anything and everything you ever wanted or needed to do? No one said anything. They were too mesmerized by Mr. Lemoncello's rat-a-tat words. Would it be A, robots silently whizzing their way through the library restocking the shelves? B, the Electronic Learning Center with 3 dozen plasma screen TVs all connected to flight simulators and educational video games? Or C, the Wonder Dome, lined with 10 giant video screens, and it can make the whole building feel like a rocket ship blasting off from outer space? The game room, someone shouted. The robots! The video dome! Mr. Lemoncello raced back to the podium and made a buzzing noise into the microphone. Sorry, the correct answer is, and not just because of Winn-Dixie, D, all of the above. The crowd went wild. Mr. Lemoncello whirled around to face his head librarian. Dr. Zinchenko, will you kindly help me pass out our first 12 library cards? It was time to announce the essay contest winner. Dr. Zinchenko placed a stack of 12 shiny cards on the podium in front of Mr. Lemoncello. Please, he said, as I call your name, come join me on stage. Miguel Fernandez. Yes! Miguel jumped out of his seat. Akimi Hughes. Woohoo! Kyle was thrilled to see his two best friends be the first ones called on stage. Andrew Peckelman, Bridget Wadge, Sierra Russell, Yasmin Smith Snyder. Yasmin squealed when her name was called. Sean Keegan, Haley Daly, Rose Vermette, and Kayla Borson. 10 kids, all the same age as Kyle, were up on stage with his idol, Mr. Lemoncello. He was not. He only had 2 more chances. As if reading his mind, Mr. Lemoncello said, "Only 2 more," and tapped a pair of library cards on the podium. Charles Chiltington. Gosh, really? He dashed up to the podium and started pumping Mr. Lemoncello's hand. "Thank you, sir. This is such an honor. Truly, truly, I mean it." "Thank you, Charles. May I have my hand back? I needed to flip over this final card." "Of course, sir. But I cannot wait to spend the night in your library, or as I like to call it, your Athenaeum. Because, as I said in my essay, when you open a book, you open your mind." Finally, Charles the Brown-Noser let go of Mr. Lemoncello's hand and went over to line up with the other winners. "And last but not least," said Mr. Lemoncello, "Kyle Keeley." Kyle could not believe his ears. He thought he was dreaming. But then Akimi started waving for him to come on up. Dazed, Kyle made his way up the steps to join the others on stage. Mr. Lemoncello handed Kyle a library card. His name and the number 12 were printed on the front. 2 book covers, "I Love You, Stinky Face," and "The Napping House," were on the back. "Let's all pose for a picture, please," said the principal. When everybody moved into position for the photographer, Kyle found himself standing right next to Mr. Lemoncello. He swallowed hard. "I'm a big fan, sir," he said. His voice was kind of shaky. "Why, thank me, and remind me, you are—" "I'm Kyle, sir. I'm Kyle Keeley." "Ah, yes, the boy who proved that he'd always known to be true. The game is never over till it's over. Bung!" I will read the next 2 chapters next day. Have a great day, you guys.